A southern Minnesota city is stepping up to keep its hospital afloat.
The Madelia Economic Development Authority voted this week to approve a $3 million loan to Madelia Health as rural hospitals across Minnesota face growing financial pressure. City leaders say the hospital employs nearly 190 people and drives an estimated $75 million in regional economic activity. EDA officials say the loan buys time for the hospital and sends a clear message that the community is willing to invest in the institutions that hold it together. More than 30% of Minnesota hospitals are currently operating in the red.